welcome everybody to today's session. This time we are covering the importance of link building. We're joined by Vicky Bailey, our Outreach Manager here at WMG. Vicky has 16 years experience and has seen the concept of SEO grow from Yahoo directory submissions to the multifaceted industry it is today. Her team of 19 cover a wide range of niches and have language skills that give them the potential to cover over 90 countries. We're also joined by Cheryl Crossley, PR Associate Director at WMG. Cheryl has 11 years experience activating brand and SEO PR strategies and has worked with many leading brands including Pretty Little Thing, Red Row Homes, Carphone Warehouse and SES. Together, Vicky and Cheryl will discuss link building and why continuing to build links is so important when it comes to helping improve your rankings and visibility, ultimately driving traffic and sales. This is a topic we're regularly asked about, so we'll then cover some frequently asked questions, and if you have anything else you'd like to ask, feel free to send those across to us by email or social media. Over to you both.
Great. So we thought it would make sense to start by explaining why links are important. So I'm sure you've heard about what a link is. Essentially, they are part of any SEO strategy, or they typically should be, and they're something that Google considers to be a trust signal. So they help Google to see how authoritative your website is, and you get rewarded for links. So much like you get rewarded for a website that's really well optimized, it's got great content, links are a part of Google's kind of algorithm or system that ranks your website and gauges how strong it is and how well served it is to meet the demands of people searching. At the minute now, more than ever, with people at home more, COVID times and people shopping online rather than going out on the high street, all sorts of reasons like that, you will want to be ensuring that your website ranks as high as possible for key terms, and that particularly if you're selling products or services, that people can find those really, really easily through Google. And we've also got, Black Friday, Christmas, Boxing Day sales on the horizon too. So there's another reason to consider why you want to ensure your website ranks as high as it can. And as I said, links is all part of that. Higher organic rankings can also reduce your PPC spend. So if you are investing quite a lot of money in paid at the minute, you may be able to reduce that spend over time if your organic visibility is better. Why should you care about links? So if you've not been persuaded by the argument that it can help your visibility and that it can be a big part of your SEO strategy, then you also need to consider that your competitors are probably doing it. So links, it's not that volume per se or the quality per se singularly, all of those elements combined are really, really important. But if your competitors are driving a volume of quality links through and making website improvements and kind of being quite aggressive with their SEO strategy, then you could get left behind. So links isn't just about getting ahead, it's sometimes about maintaining the position that you're in, the important position you're in, so you can continue to drive sales and traffic through. Sometimes you do get links naturally. People will mention you on forums and in posts and in news outlets from time to time, but you can also proactively drive more links through digital PR and outreach activity through link building tactics. So we're going to explain a little bit more about what the difference between digital PR and outreach is and how those tactics work, and ultimately how they serve to drive more links to support your SEO strategy.
Okay. So now you know why you need links, but how do you get them? So in the SEO division, we have two link building teams, and that is the outreach team, which I'm head of, and Cheryl, who covers the digital PR team. We basically use the same insight to inform our approach of how to get links, using DA band gap analysis, link gap analysis, a lot of keyword research, and a lot of looking into what your competitors are doing, because you want to stay ahead of the game, getting the same traffic, getting the same links that they're getting. So seeing what they're doing, looking for avenues we can go down is really, really important. So what's different? Well, it's mainly the types of sites we're targeting. So the digital PR team will cover really high domain sites or media, news outlets. And what we're covering is different types of links that are more targeted for the client's niche. So it could be universities, councils, tourist boards. We've got on shopping centres before, and also some lesser known news websites, although still having a good DA, and some niche blogs. So digital PR links are centred around the media, like I mentioned, and the mid to high tier DA news sites, and they're really, really, really good for your brand and for your SEO presence as well. You find this dual approach with the two teams working together can earn a really good mix of homepage, content and product links. So we can go from brand mentions to more targeted content going into those really, really targeted links on your site. And that creates a much bigger natural backlink profile. So you've got a range of links from a range of sites with a range of DA, which looks really natural. And having the two teams working together on this, there's just so many websites out there, it would be really hard for one team to cover everything. So we have the two different teams covering their two different specialities, so you're getting a good range of coverage and sites.
Fab. So digital PR and outreach working collaboratively, thinking about how we can drive the best volume and quality of links we can. That collaboration is really important, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single time we're getting a new link that it's with a completely bespoke piece of content. It's not. Often what we'll do is we will do plenty of research prior to producing any big piece of content, whether it's a white paper, a report, a kind of a creative infographic, etc. And we will ensure that that content is the best it can possibly be, that it's thematically relevant to you and your business, and thinking about keyword groupings and all sorts of important things like that, your link gap, etc. So it's already really, really well researched. So you can't do that for 60 pieces of content. If you want to drive 60 great links, you have to think about what you can do with the content that you've got. So we will take that well-researched content and we will push it out through digital PR to really relevant high DA news platforms, thinking about what's going to interest the press at that given time. And then the outreach team will take that content and they will adapt it and they will flex it to suit another mix of websites. So the angle might not be exactly the same. There shouldn't be that sort of duplication of content, but it is about taking all of the research and all the time we've invested in production and making that work as hard as possible. And that's great because, you know, as we said, all of that content should be really relevant to you and it should have keyword groupings, you know, consideration with keyword groupings as part of that process anyway. So if you're driving the right links with the right content, then that's going to have a bigger impact on your SEO. So yeah, we take content and we adapt it. We like to have a mix of more news-centered sort of seasonal content and also evergreen content. Evergreen content is great for driving links over time. So it's sort of an always-on tactic. You can leave a campaign running for a number of months and feel confident that it's going to keep churning out links. Whereas the seasonal or the sort of more news-focused campaigns and activity are great for what is sometimes kind of a pre-peak spike. Or because you want to drive volume at a specific period of time. Maybe you've seen a competitor's being quite aggressive with their link building strategy and you feel like you've got a little bit of an opportunity to catch up. So having those two things running at the same time is really effective, and another example of how digital PR and outreach work so well, because we can, within PR, tailor those news-focused kind of newsjacking stories, whereas with outreach, there's that opportunity for that consistent link drive. So yeah, really good to have a mix of both reactive and evergreen content being produced. So we thought we'd also talk you through a couple of examples of this. So the collaboration between PR and outreach and making content work harder. So one example, we ran a campaign fairly recently for an insurance company, and it was all about accidents in the home. And we looked at a number of elements of research, so some survey, used some of their own data and insight to look at kind of the most dangerous areas of the home to produce a nice PR story, really relevant because so many people were spending months and months at home barely leaving the house, and then also a really cool little supporting infographic, kind of brain teasery type thing where spot the hazards in the home, create some great on-site content, really organically keyword rich that we placed on site, and that was pushed out to media titles. And then the outreach team took that and adapted it, as we discussed. So they took it and thought, how can we pitch this to a broader mix of websites? So whereas with PR we were maybe looking at some of the nationals because we needed those high DA links, the outreach team were looking at really relevant business, employee engagement sites, career sites, etc., home sites. They were all thematically relevant to the business itself and to the products and services that they offered, but they also really suited the campaign. And they were thinking about what content would suit those sites. So taking that accidents in the home story and going, right, can we look at how to avoid accidents in the home, a tip-based piece, the most dangerous areas of the home, and then maybe kind of room specific, etc. Loads of opportunity came off the back of a single campaign. And that's just one example to show you how it can work so nicely together.
And utilising the content that is produced by the PR team also gives the content that we're pushing out a lot more authority, especially when it's got the graphics that have been utilised and created in-house, and just gives that content a lot more interesting. It's more read-worthy if there's stats and data in there, and gives it a lot more interest to the readership as well.
Great, thank you both. I know this is a topic that regularly comes up in client conversations, and there was some great expertise shared there. Do have some questions relating to link building that were frequently asked, so let's take a look at these. The first one is, how do I know if I have less links than my competitors?
Okay, so it's quite easy to check on this. What we have in-house is tools that we use to check competitor analysis. So we're using a couple of tools. We use Moz, SEMrush and Ahrefs. And what we do is pull a link intersect or link gap report. And we have an internal tool as well that's been built by our tech team. And that basically looks at the authority of your competitors' backlinks, the type of links, the niche of links, and we also group that into the DA bandings. So we can see if your competitors have more links, say from 50 to 80, then we could say, right, it'd be good for you potentially have a digital PR campaign, because those guys are the ones that are getting those really high DA links. If you're looking just for a broader spectrum of links across the board, then it'd be really good to have a combined approach. We generally are getting links from like DA 20 to 30 up to 50. So it is a broad spectrum, but we basically pinpoint where you need your links and what gap we need to be filling those in.
Thanks, Vicky. And another, so a brand that's got a lot of good links in the past, do they still need to be getting new links?
So it's great that you got great links previously, but we need to give Google fresh evidence of your expertise and your relevancy, so that they keep you in that expertise. We often get clients that have previously, perhaps when link building is a little bit easier, maybe had got some really strong national links that are maybe now 4 or 5 years old, and we always recommend refreshing those where we can. As I said, it's all about showing Google that you're still relevant and that they should still be sending people to your website. So yeah, always worth looking at the backlink profile and seeing how old links are, thinking about refreshing, evidencing relevancy and trust again and again, particularly if your competitors are doing it, because you could find that you get left behind otherwise. And yeah, as Vicky said, using all of that insight to inform the type of links that we need, where we need them, how many, etc.
Great, thanks, Cheryl. And another one, are all links worth the same?
Well, it would make our job much simpler if all links were worth the same, but no, they're not. So it's a little bit more complicated, to be honest. What one person deems as a really great link, another person might deem it as spammy or not high enough DA. So basically, with the links, we mainly try to go for thematic relevancy. So it's really important to make sure that the sites we're targeting are on theme to your niche, your website, your products, and that the content that we're publishing on there is also relevant to the site we're targeting, and making sure that it's the content is in tune with the product or the topic that we're talking around for our client as well. Obviously, DA is a thing. a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on DA. So that is one of our targets in-house as well. You really want to be targeting sites that have got a DA of 20 and above. But that's not saying that you should completely disregard sites that potentially have a lower DA, say 18, 19, but are very, very specific to what you do. If you have a very specific product, let's say you sell batteries and we found a blog about batteries, which would be exceptionally niche, we would still be wanting to target that, because why would you not? But generally it's DA 20 and above. The scale runs from 1 to 100. The higher the DA, the links are classed as more authoritative and therefore more powerful. It's also a logarithmic scale, so the higher the score, the harder it is to jump up to the next point. Also, we check if the site's ranking for relevant keywords and that it's having a good amount of traffic going into that site, so that that's then passing the power on to your site as well, because that's worth more to your business as a link. So essentially you should be considering multiple things on a link, rather than just, has it got a high DA? You need to be looking at theme, keywords, traffic and relevancy to make sure it's a good all-round link.
Perfect. And then the last question for now, how many links should a good campaign get?
Always a tricky one to answer, and I would always say that a great campaign will get really good quality links and great volume, but if I had to choose between the two, I'd always favour quality over quantity. And much as Vicky said, it's about thematic relevance, an element of DA, and also the niche in the industry that you work in. If you've got a really, really niche topic, you might be quite limited as to where you can place content on that, versus a really, really broad topic where you might find that you get pick up across 50 sites, and you can't really compare the results of those two campaigns and say that first one was a failure and this one was was not, just on volume alone. An example being, I worked with a client in the care home sector. There was a very specific care service that they wanted to do more about. They were ranking on page 4 at the time for this specific term, and they wanted to get as high up as they could. And we worked with them on a piece of really relevant, newsworthy content related to this product or service. And we pitched it out, and we got 2 links, I think, and they weren't super high DA, but they were really, really relevant. They were good DA, but they were really, really relevant. They used the content that we supplied, edited it to give it their own tone of voice. It was very relevant to the client, and that client went from page 4 to position 8 on page 1, in a couple of months with just a couple of links. And obviously that is what we're all here for. It's driving links that will improve rankings and traffic, and it's exactly what that did. Whereas we'll have other campaigns where perhaps previously, other agencies have perhaps driven link volume because a client's been promised a certain number of links, and you've maybe looked at websites that weren't as relevant, and you've literally just had to hit that volume number, and you know that they're not going to be as impactful, but you've got this target to hit. And that's always really disappointing, I think, when you then look at the impact of those links on visibility and it's really minimal, versus if you'd just been perhaps less pushed into driving a specific volume target and more encouraged to, or enabled to drive the best quality links that you could in that time frame, knowing that they were going to be more impactful. So yeah, for me, quality over quantity every time. You nearly always see the benefit of that quicker, and the results tend to last longer, in my experience. They're longer term, more beneficial trust signals to Google than a drop in the ocean 20 kind of rubbishy links, which might show something quickly, but then I think Google will quickly realise they're not what you need.
Thank you. So I'll hand over to Vicky if she could do the summary.
Yes, so just a few key points to take away from this. If you're not thinking about earning links, then do you know what? Maybe you should be. Do look at what your competitors are doing. Like Cheryl mentioned from the beginning, a lot of people are going digital or thinking about going digital or putting more into their digital presence. So you don't want to get left behind by your competitors. backlink analysis, so that can really help gauge opportunity to determine the best strategy we can take and the best outreach campaign that we can put together for you as well. Outreach and PR, so you need to be not thinking of them separately, you need to be really thinking of them as a conjoined effort, because they really do complement each other. Taking PR creation, content creation, PR assets, and us utilising them for outreach is really important and makes us be able to create some really good quality content that we can then push out to other websites as well. Consider producing a blend of evergreen content and more reactive content. As Cheryl said, it's good to keep a mix of both, so you're covering all bases. And the main takeaway from this is look at the quality of the links you're getting alongside relevancy and volume. So like she mentioned, having 2 really good quality links is much better and much more worthwhile than having 50 links pointing in to one target page that looks obvious to Google what we're trying to do. So I would say they are your main takeaways.
Thank you. I think that's everything from us. So thank you for joining today's session. We hope you've enjoyed it and have taken away things. A little bit about us. WMG is an award-winning digital marketing agency focused on data and ROI through the delivery of SEO, paid media, digital PR, targeted outreach and content marketing. We're always happy to have a chat with you about your digital marketing requirements. Our contact details are on screen now, so please do not hesitate to get in touch with us.